Hi there, my name is Christina Hildebrand and I am the president and founder of A Voice for Choice Advocacy. We are an advocacy group that educates and advocates for informed choice and transparency of whatever goes into your body. So we want you to know what's in it and you get to choose whether you put that into your body or not. Today I wanted to do a brief presentation on tips on lobbying your legislature. So in California, which is where we are based, and all over the country, medical and healthcare rights are being attacked. And when that happens, it happens usually through bills. So through bills that are introduced into the legislature and then passed through and made into law. One of the key things there is knowing your legislators and being able to have a relationship with them so that when these bills do come, you can have a frank conversation with them and be able to educate them on your issues, be it with health freedom or medical integrity or anything else that you are interested in. California has 3,000 bills, over 3,000 bills that go through the legislature to some extent every single year. We have one of the most aggressive legislatures in that they get a lot of bills pushed through compared to other states. And that's because our legislature here in California is in session from January until September every single year. If you look at other states, states like Texas are in session every other year for 3 to 4 months. We have one of the longest sessions here in California, so a lot more gets done in California than in other states, which isn't necessarily a good thing because most of us, I think, would agree that we don't really need 3,000 new laws on the books or even ideas for new laws on the books every year. Anyway, I'm going to get started. This is specifically about how to lobby your legislators. So how do you go and meet with your legislators? How do you communicate with your legislators? How do you find out who your legislators are? But really getting into that process. And in order to make a difference, you have to know who your legislators are, because ultimately that's where bills get made, laws get made, and where laws get repealed is in the legislature. So while there are other people that are focusing on other things, we have no problem with that. But one of the key pieces that A Voice for Choice Advocacy does is we actually do lobby in the legislature, and we ask that grassroots and activists also lobby their legislators. So let's get into it. Who are your legislators? So here in California and in other states, these are called slightly different things, possibly. But here in California, you have 2 U.S. senators. So those are the people in Washington, D.C. We at A Voice for Choice Advocacy don't deal with them very much. We focus on our state legislature because that's where most of the bills that are impacting us on a daily basis, our kids going to school, that type of thing, are made on the state level. So the 2 state level legislatures that you have in California is a state senator and a state assembly member. The state senator has about 1 million people in their district, and a state assembly member has about 500,000 people in their district. So they're quite large districts. California, again, is one of the places that has the largest districts underneath a assembly member or a senator. Most other states have much, much smaller representation under them because they're smaller states. In order to find your legislator, who your legislators are, you can go to a website called findyourreplegislature.ca.gov, and if you input your address in there, it will then show you who your 2 legislators, your state legislators are, and it'll give you a link to their websites. And once you get to their websites, you want to go in and you want to sign up for their newsletter. And the purpose of doing that is it allows you to see what they're up to. It allows you to see what public events they have. It allows you to see what bills they're sponsoring, what interests they have, all of those types of things. And it really gives you sort of the first look at who your legislators are. Our next recommendation is that you meet with your legislator. Now, the easiest way to do that is to go to a coffee morning, a town hall meeting, some meeting that they are putting on. Most of them do that maybe somewhere between 6 to 8 times a year, and it's a great way to meet them. different legislators have different styles. So some will do an open coffee morning, answer questions, take questions from anyone in a large group. Others will sit down at a table and answer specific individual questions. Others will do a town hall meeting in which you can submit your questions, and some of them are answered, some of them are not answered. So as I said, everybody has a different way of doing it, but they all hold public events where you can go to. And it's a good place, it's a good first step if you don't know who your legislator is or you're intimidated by going to their office or scheduling an appointment. It's a good place to go to just see and feel them out and see who they are and see what's important to them. Once you've gone to their coffee morning, the other thing with their coffee morning is it's a great place to afterwards go up to them and just introduce yourself, say who you are, a few things about you, who you are in the district, if you're a parent, if you're involved in education, if you're involved with healthcare, what your job is, any of those details that you think would resonate with them. And one of the things you can do there is if you go up to them, you can say, could I have a meeting with you? Could I set up a meeting with you? I'd really like to discuss a certain topic. It's very hard for them in front of other people to say no. And so at that point you ask for their scheduler, who should I get in touch with? And they'll usually give you their scheduler, or they'll point you in the direction of that scheduler. Once you have that, you want to set up an appointment with them. You want to go into their office. You want to meet the people there, because as much as the representative is either the assembly member or the senator is the person you really want to talk to, all of those staffers influence what they hear and what they think about you. And so you also want to get to know the staffers. So the district staffers are there every week, all day, every day, other than holidays and weekends, obviously, but they're there. The legislator is only in their district office on Thursday evenings and Fridays, because from Monday to Thursday, they're up in Sacramento. And in Sacramento, they have another set of staff who is their capital staff. And they serve slightly different purposes. So their district staff really are in charge of the district and community issues, constituent issues. The capital staff are really there to support them in passing all these bills or understanding what the bills say, that type of thing, bringing forward their own bills. So they serve two different purposes. The best thing is to get to know both sets of staffers, but the district staffers are sort of the good place to start off with. When you have an appointment, and sometimes it takes a while to get an appointment with the legislator, go in and we'll go through what to talk about and what information you should do. But one of the things when you go into the district office, feel free to bring organic brownies or organic muffins or something like that, something that makes them remember you and think of you in a positive way. So flowers, those types of things. I will say, if you don't want to go alone, definitely go with friends. Take friends. If you don't have anyone in your district that you feel comfortable going to a coffee event or to some other event, definitely if you're in California, get in touch with us, a Voice for Choice Advocacy, and we have people in every district that would be happy to be supportive of someone who's getting into the legislation and meeting their legislators for the first time, or maybe for the 10th time. The key piece of this is, and I say this as a goal, and that is for your legislature to know you well enough that if you're standing at a coffee event or you're standing in a crowd, that they know who you are and they know what you stand for. To the point of, if you have your legislator's cell phone number, we don't want you to use it and abuse it, but if you're on that level with your legislator that you have their cell phone number and they know if you text them or you call them that it's an emergency, they will pick up and they know who you are. That's sort of the goal, is to know them that well and that they know you and your issue that well. That doesn't mean to say you need to be polite to them. You need to be respectful of them. You need to be professional is really what it comes down to. These are people that work for you. If you're at work, you wouldn't start yelling, or I hope you wouldn't, but most of us wouldn't start yelling at a colleague or somebody that works for us. You need to be respectful of that. I understand, here in California and many other places, there are legislators that we don't particularly care for because they bring forward legislation. They're not particularly nice themselves. But we really strive to have a good relationship with most legislators because they're what make or break our laws, and what make a difference in what happens in your state. So going on, so where do you have these conversations with your legislator? Where else are conversations? So you can schedule an appointment in the district office, as we said, but there are other places that they go to. So in Sacramento, places where you would go to lobby are obviously in the Capitol. You may go to their Capitol office. You may be just in the hallway. So know what your legislator looks like. Again, if they know who you are, if they're in the hallway and you go, oh, hi, Senator so-and-so, and they stop and talk to you, those are all, every touch point you have with your legislator is an important touch point. So you could be outside of the committee hearings, and other places giving testimony during committee hearings. So if you are up in Sacramento, we highly recommend you go into committee hearings to hear what bills are being heard that day. So usually on Tuesday and Wednesdays they have the committee hearings, and so if you're up there on Tuesday and Wednesdays, you can go into the health, the education, the environmental safety, all of those committee hearings, and you can see what bills are being heard. And if there are bills that are being heard that you're for or against, go up to the microphone and give your public comments, state your name and say whether you're opposed or against it. Because that just allows the legislature to realize that, oh, you're actually an involved person in your community. You're making a difference and you're interested in what they're doing. So how do you build that relationship with that legislator? You want to know about them. You want to sort of do some research on the legislature, on their staff, on their aides, and develop that relationship. So, and how does it relate to you? So most legislators have their pet projects, be it education, special needs, environmental quality, safety, toxics, women's rights, gay, lesbian rights, those types of things. So everyone has their pet issue, and just by looking at what they've had as legislation in the past will give you an idea of that. So you can find that on their website. So their website, their district website that you've looked up, often has a lot of their legislation, their current legislation, their past legislation, and gives you a feel for what's important to them. What legislation have they sponsored and have they authored? And how does that relate to you? So most people have something in common with all of those things that I mentioned, and you want to relate to that. You want to share with them how are you impacted by what they're doing and what's important to them. You also want to meet them where they're at, and what that means is, if on your issue or on different issues, they have their knowledge and you have your knowledge, and you want to meet them at where they're at and then further their knowledge on that issue or whatever issue that is important to you. You also have to assume that they know a certain amount. What that amount is, don't know, but you need to sort of let them know that you're bringing them helpful information and that you want to be their go-to expert on that topic, or you can help them find more information out, specifically with their aides and their staffers, and in the Sacramento office. Be there to support them, and if they have legislation on, let's just say, special needs that's of interest to you as well, can you be their expert? Can you be the person that helps them understand why something will work or won't work, or why something needs to happen? The other thing, that if you bring a leave behind, it's always good to have something to leave behind so that they have a summary of sort of what you talked about, or your key points. If you have a leave behind, make sure it's at most 1 page or 2 pages long. You really don't want to go over 1 page, because they're just not going to read it. They're just not going to get back to it. But if it's something that's of importance and easy for them to find when they're needing to reference it, that's something to bring with you. And also ask them if you can email them an electronic copy. Make sure you follow up with them. We'll get into following up afterwards. So the other thing that you want to know is the process of a bill and the status of your issue. So if your issue has a bill, or if your legislator has voted on a bill in the past. So if we take, for example, the vaccine issue here in California, we've had 2 pieces of legislation, one in 2015, one in 2019. Look at where your legislator, how they voted on that. What was their opinion? Did they give opinion during any of the testimony that they gave? What is their history with that issue? Where do they stand on it? And regardless of where they stand on it, find the common ground. So even if they are completely on the vaccine issue, completely pro-vax, really feel that vaccines cannot harm anyone, it's, 1 in a million, not going to happen, these doctors are fine, everyone is fine, try to work out what else is it that they're interested in. Are they interested in special needs? Do you go down the special needs side of things to get them to finally understand, and all of this doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time to happen. But we have to continue educating them. So with respect to the bills, if they have a bill that you're interested in that they are authoring or somebody else is authoring, know where the status of that bill is. So is it a new bill right now in January and February? They're introducing new bills for the next year. And so you want to look at, and a Voice for Choice Advocacy sends out a list of bills that we are interested in, but you can see what bills that they're putting forward. Then, or is it an existing bill? So later on in the year, is it an existing bill that you support or oppose? Could you draft and introduce amendments? So one of the things that we've done is when there are bills that we don't like, that we know we can't kill, we've introduced amendments. So we've asked for amendments that make changes that make it more palatable, because very often these bills don't die. Especially if they're a much larger bill and we're only concerned with one small piece of it that we don't like. And we've been very successful at getting amendments that allow people to have informed choice and transparency. Or, for example, is an amendment introduced and you're supporting or opposing that amendment? So you want to have that conversation. So if you're specifically going in about a specific bill, you want to know where it's at, and you want to know specifically what do you want the legislature to do about that bill. So in the actual meeting, what do you do? And I will say probably the first thing to do is introduce yourself, ask them what they know about your specific issue. I would probably say if there isn't a bill that you're specifically opposing or supporting, find a bill of theirs that you're interested in and talk about that and how you can support them on that. The key piece also with any legislative staff or legislator is to listen to them. They are going to have a lot to tell you and a lot of information that they will give to you just by allowing them to speak. So while you may have a whole load of information, and I will say these meetings are usually only 15 minutes, maybe half an hour long, but while you have a whole load of information that you want to share with them, actually listening to them gets you a lot more benefit than just spewing yourself. The listening part specifically, for example, we've had meetings with legislators where we've gone in and we've been like, okay, we think we're going to push this from an education angle because they are so gung-ho on education. And then we've realized that actually no, they have a partner or a friend that's a pediatrician, and that's who their main point of contact is, and that's who they're getting their information from. And therefore we have to sort of pivot and change our way. But if we hadn't listened and we'd just gone in, we would have gone with the education side of things, and that would not have swayed that legislature to our side. Allow them, use your personal story. So why is this important to you? What is the deal? What's your story? So that they have a place to resonate with you on. Personal stories make them much more likely to remember you, to have an impact on them. And come with a solution. So the other piece of this, once you've told your story, once you've given your issue, once you've listened to them, make sure you have a solution, because just walking in there and saying, I hate this bill, we've got to get rid of this bill, usually doesn't get you anywhere. So what is the solution? What do you want them to do? Is there an amendment that they could bring forward? Is there information that you want them to share with their colleagues, with their other legislators? What is it that you want them to move forward? Is there somebody else, like the head of CDPH, that you want them to talk to, California Public Health Department, that you want them to talk to? Those types of things. The other piece is, if they ask you a question and you don't know the answer to it, just say you don't know the answer, but that you can get back to them with an answer. And the key piece there is not even so much that you don't know the answer and you'll get back to them, but it allows you to give another point of contact. So after you've left the meeting, you want to send a thank you note, thank you for meeting with us, but it allows you to follow up with a piece of information that they didn't have before. So you've now started a conversation, and you've now started having that back and forth that allows you to build to the next place. So the next time, maybe you go back to a coffee morning or to a town hall and go up to them. Make sure you always go up to them afterwards and just say, hi, Christina Hildebrand, a Voice for Choice Advocacy, or, just Christina Hildebrand, mom, educator, whatever you are, and go up to them and again introduce yourself and just remind them who you are, and that it was really interesting what you said on this. I have some information on that. Could I send it to you? Or those types of follow-up pieces of information. But I'll go over the main points. One is you need to know your two state legislators. Great if you also know your U.S. senator and your congressman or woman, your congressional representative. But you really need to know your state assembly member and your state senator. And you need to remember that they work for you and that you can be a resource to them. You can be an educational resource for them or an expert in a certain subject area. And it's having that relationship with them, with their local district staff, and with their capital district staff, and building that relationship so it's something that they know exactly who you are, that you're a professional person, you're not going to yell and scream at them. We can be many other things as well as that. But that we in California have bad bills, okay? In order to get rid of those, we need to have good bills going forward. And so the legislators and having that relationship are the only way we're going to change the legislation and the laws in California. And so we have to have these good relationships in order to move forward, because a Voice for Choice Advocacy, we have a 5-year plan in which we hope to get back our religious, conscious, personal belief exemption in California. And in order to do that, we have to have the groundwork. We have to have the consistency of knowing our legislators and building those relationships and having the grassroots and making this a mainstream issue and not a fringe issue. It's a one voter issue. They need to be concerned. I will also say the other place that you can help, and I'm going to do a separate video on this, but the other place that you can make a difference is in the elections. We can make a difference there. We can vote out the people that we don't think should be in Sacramento. We have to get our voices heard. And in order to do that, you have to have these similar meetings with your legislators and with your representatives. So I'll get into that in a different video, but it is another place that we have to have these relationships if we're going to change the laws in California. Thank you. Again, I'm Christina Hildebrand from A Voice for Choice Advocacy. If you need more information, please go to avoiceforchoiceadvocacy.org. Thanks a lot.